Welcome back to the Socality Show. I'm your host, Scott Bakken. I hope you enjoy today's conversation. So on this podcast, I thought it'd be great if Levi, I'm going to turn it over to you, and you're going to get to interview us. And we're going to tell you all about the Socality story, and what I think is really cool is you were there with us for not me day one, but for you day one, because I had done a whole lot of back work. But I think it'll be an interesting story to hear for people about how it all started, the early days, behind the scenes, and then where it is now. So
100%.
I'm passing it over to you.
All right.
Take the reins.
First of all, Scott, how old are you?
I'm
just kidding.
Depends when people are watching this, but I was born in 1977. So depending on when you're watching this, you have to do the math.
Do you see this?
I know.
We're now selling 1977 merch right here.
Yeah, order it online.
Scott.
I wish that was ours. But yeah, 1977. So whenever you're watching this, do the math and figure out my current age.
There you go.
Yeah.
Okay, well, why don't when we start, like right off of the bat, do you want to just give us a quick, couple sentence? What is Socality?
Yeah, I think that was definitely when we launched, it was an intriguing question, like people trying to find out what it is. But at the core, Socality is a creative community, and it really just exists to connect people into community, belonging, and creative opportunities. And so we host a lot of events online and in person with the idea of connecting people to people and connecting them into their opportunities.
That's cool. And then who is it for? I
mean, essentially, Socality is for everyone, but at the same time, like attracts like. So we definitely get a certain style of person. That person being artists, creators, entrepreneurs, people looking for community, lots of photographers, videographers, people active on social, musicians, the creative type. And then we get a lot of people that are just looking for community that like to appreciate, think of your typical people that hang out at coffee shops, the hipster vibes. We definitely attract that kind of person, the artist, creator.
Right. Yeah.
But everyone is welcome.
Yeah.
Especially it's been really exciting. I know we'll talk about the backstory, but at our events that we're doing lately, we see a lot of diversity in age, and it's been really exciting to see.
So you're saying people even as old as 1977
they are definitely welcome. They should be there.
Okay, so we know who it's for.
Yeah.
Give us a little bit of where were the roots started? What was it? Was it something that you had in your heart for a very long time? What did it look like?
I mean, I've always loved people, right? And I've always loved hanging out with my friends, and I've always loved having a good time with my friends and community. I'm an extrovert, and I'm someone who loves to be around people, hang out with people. And, we were, my wife and I were living in Calgary, and then we moved to Australia in 2005, and we lived there for almost 6 years. And back then there was no social media. Facebook actually launched when we were there. And there was no iPhone. So when we were living in Australia, the only way to talk to people back home was
MSN Messenger.
Yeah, MSN. Skype. You'd Skype, or we'd get a calling card. And you'd have to call your family, but there's no face to face. And so when Facebook came on the scene, it was really exciting because we're like, wow, we can see our family and our friends, and we can post photos, and they could see us, and we could see them. So it was a real wow, this is really amazing that we feel a little bit more connected to back home. And then when we moved back to Canada. There was just a massive, we'd been away for almost 6 years. So we're trying to reconnect back into this country. And when you've been away for 6 years, so much had changed. Right. And we were looking for community because I was a community person, and we had just come from Australia, beaches, warm summer days. Think about 35-degree nights where you're just sitting outside, just eating Thai food and just in a tank top.
Oh my gosh.
I know, just life was amazing, and people were always outside, and the weather just brought people out. So it was an exciting culture, and we had such a great community. And think about leaving that and coming back to Canada, and where, the tendency in Canada is to hibernate.
Why would you even come back from that, though?
I mean, I know, right?
What's the quick answer?
The quick answer is we had been there for 6 years, and we wanted to start a family. So we were on the other side of the world. Right, so it was, I would have stayed forever, but I saw the value of raising a family around our family, especially for my wife, around cousins and grandma and grandpa. aunts and uncles. I just saw the value of that.
Right.
And then we had great friends, but you start to feel like the friend that's always over at Christmas dinner. It's never your family. You're always like the friend, right? So we saw the value of being with our family. So that's why we came back.
Okay. So you make it back here.
Make it back here, and I'm in shock, like, because my whole brain and my heart was still in Australia, but my body was here.
Oh, yeah.
And it was hard because then we had Facebook, and pre-Facebook, pre-social, when you left somewhere, you left somewhere. Like, you know what I mean? Like, you're like,
You had to send someone a telegram, a letter.
Yeah, like you'd have to write a letter. Remember when you'd write letters? I don't know if you remember this, but you'd write letters and you'd always put the arrow on the bottom to flip over. Like there's more on the other page, remember?
I did that in class when I was writing cute girls.
Yeah. But you'd write, hello, how are you? And you'd send a letter. 3 months later, you get it back. I'm fine, thank you. Like, I waited 3 months to hear they're fine. Great. But I mean, it was kind of this weird world of like, we were back in Canada. Snow is on the ground. I hadn't seen snow in 6 years. Knee deep, it's cold. People are hibernating. I'm looking for community. And then at the same time, I'm still seeing my whole social network of friends in Australia on Facebook. Oh. And it's killing me.
Yeah, that'd be
They're
tough.
all at the beach and I'm seeing my friends and I'm feeling this like massive disconnection because it was really hard to separate because it was like I'm mentally and emotionally there, but I'm physically here.
Right.
And so there was this new app that had come onto the scene called Instagram. So I downloaded Instagram, and it was a way that I was kind of still connecting with my friends back in Australia. And it was fun for me to kind of start showing my world again. And I was like, well, I'm just going to try and connect back into this space. Build community, because traditionally the way you met people was like you would go somewhere, meet people, and you'd hang out.
Right.
That was what you did, you know? And so this idea of like connecting online was still a new thing. So I was just going out to the mountains and taking photos on my iPhone and starting posting photos in this winter scenes, throwing them on Instagram. And what happened was people, like I thought nobody cared where Calgary was. Like nobody, like Sydney, Australia. You think about
that's the spot.
Even pre, like, New York and LA and Sydney, like these are like triumphant cities. And then you have Calgary, like, like who cares about Calgary?
Right.
And so I was just
no one's buying a T-shirt that says Calgary on it.
Exactly. It's
I
like
heard Calgary.
It's like where's that?
Yeah, I guess. Yeah.
Now they are. But
thanks to you guys.
Back then,
1977.
Yeah, exactly. But back then I was just like taking photos on my iPhone, posting them on Instagram, and then people would be like, "Wow, this is really beautiful." I was like, "Is it?" Because I wasn't looking at it through those eyes. I wasn't like, "This is beautiful." I was just thinking, "I don't want to be here. Like, I want to be anywhere but here." I'm in my knees deep in snow. I miss my friends. I'm looking for community, but I am physically here and I need to reconnect back here because this is going to be my life.
Yeah. You're planting yourself.
I'm planting myself.
What were you shooting on at the time?
iPhone.
Really?
Yeah, iPhone 4. And back when everything on Instagram was in the square, you couldn't edit captions. There was this app called Kick. And so what you would do, it's like a bit of a messenger app, and then you would message people through Kick. And that you would find on Instagram.
Right.
And you'd be like, what's your kick? And they'd put it in there and you'd message them. And then that's how you would connect with people. Because there's no DM or anything on it. Like literally just post in the square. Yeah. Couldn't edit caption to the end. That was it. Follow people, the end. So it was super raw, right?
Right.
So I was on that app and I started gaining some followers because I was posting some beautiful mountains and people liked them. And then I started to find other people. And every time I posted a photo, someone new would comment. I'd go to their page, follow them. And so there's this real because Instagram was probably the first app, like Facebook was for your friends and family, but Instagram was the first app where you started following people based on that you didn't know.
Right.
You know what I mean? Like before on Facebook, you were accepting just your friends and family. You're not following random people. But Instagram was the first app, I think, that really there was this kind of discovery. Yeah. Discovery of people. And so started to grow on social. I'm like, wow, okay, I'm really growing. But I mean, I was still looking for community. But then all of a sudden I clicked in and realized like every time I post a photo, someone comments and I comment back. It was like this community thing that was happening where it was like, I was having a conversation with people, like, just the engagement, then I'd comment on their stuff. And it was really like life-giving in the sense of like, I was finding community online. And it was like, I'm finding community, but it's so non-traditional. Like, this is not what I imagined. And it's interesting that I'm in this mountain scene, feeling very isolated, feeling very alone. but I'm looking for a community and I'm discovering it on this app with people from all over the world. And I was like, wow, I really like where they live. This person lives in Portland or San Diego or New York. And there was all these different scenes. And then as I was growing on social, and my need of community was being met, I'm like, you know what? It's interesting. Like, I have my following, you have your following, you have your following. Imagine if, we all joined together our followings and we started like connecting together as people. And imagine if you like these mountains so much. Imagine if you came and I wasn't just taking a picture and sharing it, but you were standing beside me and we were capturing together in this moment. And now this experience that we're having on this app is coming to life. Mm-hmm. Like now it's like we're together in this moment, capturing that same mountain. If you think it's so beautiful, let's capture it together. And then I like the idea of people traveling, like where they would go on this journey of discovery. Okay, well, you live in New York, we're coming to New York. You live in Portland, we're coming to Portland, or Washington or Toronto. And it was just like wanting to be in people's, whatever they saw, putting yourself in that story. Mm-hmm. So I like that idea of like connecting online and then turning it into face-to-face encounters. And so I thought this was like early, 2013, 2012. Just the idea of like, I'm finding community, it's coming through an app. I did not expect this, and I'm growing on social.
So you just kind of, you fumbled your way, like it kind of happened. Like it wasn't necessarily something that you started.
No.
Like not talking about Socality at this point, but like talking about this following, this community. It just happened organically.
It happened organically, and what was driving me was my own need and my frustration to find community. And so I was just like digging into this app because I was trying to land mentally and physically here in Calgary. And this was where I was finding my comfort and then in some ways, posting these pictures of the mountains was almost like making me excited to actually live here, because then to see people's response to like this epic mountain or this lake or this beautiful scene made me feel like, wow, maybe I do live somewhere really special. And it was kind of opening my eyes. Like it took everybody on the outside to point out to me that where I was pretty awesome.
Right.
And then I was like, man, I'm longing for this, but actually where I am is probably pretty good too.
Yeah.
And then I got really excited about the idea of bringing people here and showing them my backyard. Right. Like that was making me super pumped up, And so I would say the idea, and I didn't have a name for anything, just the idea of maybe this could be a community, a connection, a movement, or something of people joining their voices collectively for good. It was all about traveling and discovering each other. It was about capturing and sharing moments together, and just community that was non-traditional.
And so do you feel like because I know you like enough to know that you're a very good host. Do you think that kind of played into, you're bringing your friends here, like how do we like host this? How do we
totally?
You're an extremely good ringleader and bringing people together and connecting. And I've seen you even with people that I don't even know if you like, and you go up there and you make them feel loved and you make them feel cared about and whatever. And because you know that it's more important that you do that rather than just like putting how you feel on other people. Like,
yeah, I wanted anyone that had a touch point with Socality or coming to an event or coming to an experience. I wanted to be something special for them. I really wanted to think about, and obviously it was grassroots and to be honest, it still really is. I wanted people to feel special. I wanted them to feel welcome. I wanted them to feel like they were going on a journey of discovery of what could be for them.
Right. And
just like it was happening for me, like whatever I was experiencing, I knew it was like happening. Like I remember the very first time I social media, you're flipping through your thing and there was this thing, I think they've kind of half tore it down now, but it was called the Vance Creek Bridge in Washington. It was just this cool old train bridge that like had this just cool leading line. It was, how do you explain it, John? Like just beautiful scene.
Yeah, like foggy, like
trestle bridge
dangerous,
into the middle of nowhere. They could fall off.
Middle of nowhere.
No, literally.
Exactly.
Like, that's why they like shut it down for liability.
Well, it was like on private property.
The owner was like, we can't take this risk.
Yeah.
These adventure kids are going to keep taking photos of this, and one of them's going to die, and I'm going to be liable.
So it's your fault.
It's not my fault. There was other people that made it popular. But I remember that when I first went to visit a friend in Washington, I said, we got to go to the Vance Creek Bridge. And the very first time we turned the corner, I saw it and I found myself in a photo that I had been following online.
Oh, that's cool.
It was
like those places.
It was transcendent for me in that moment
right.
because it was like, this is something I've only seen on my Instagram feed, and now I'm in the photo.
Right, it's like meta, like you're that's
totally.
cool.
Now I'm here. I'm seeing it with my eyes, and it was this thing of like, and that was what Socality was. Is like, now I can be in the moment. I can be in your moment. Whatever your moment is for you, I can be in that story. And I like the idea of people discovering themselves in other people's stories.
Right. That's cool. I remember you saying to me at the first event, because again, I asked like, what is Socality, all that kind of stuff. And you said, what if like there's someone in Saskatchewan or someone in, I don't know, I'm naming Canadian cities, but Winnipeg or like in the middle of nowhere, the US or whatever, that doesn't have a community.
Totally.
What if we created something where they could be a part of something?
Totally. And I've always thought about that. Like, what about the girl in the middle of Kentucky that, you know, just is alone in a small town where she feels like nobody gets her and feels misunderstood. And, you know, we know like attracts alike. And in communities, traditionally, we do find people in our local community like us, and we gravitate to that. And often, you know, in smaller centers, that is amplified, where people feel even more alone because they might feel like they stand out. Like, I'm from Saskatchewan, you know, like this
I'm sorry about that.
Yeah, farmer community.
Right.
You know, in the southeast
Hortons,
corner by the North Dakota border, growing up in 10,000 people, and everyone was a farmer. And I had no clue about farming. I was completely
You're
ignorant.
kidding. You struck me as a farmer.
And my dad's a farmer, you know, like he has a farm, but it was like hours away that he'd drive and go farm and then come back. But I was completely unaware of my own surroundings because I just didn't feel like I fit in that community. And I know that there's lots of people out there that don't feel like they fit, but then at the same time, they can access people now in different markets or worlds where they feel like they're understood or they belong. And I think that what this does is it helps people find people like themselves and lets them know that they're okay.
Right.
And that often did not happen pre-social. I think it was harder to discover community because you have to move somewhere. If you're in a small town, you're like, remember, like, it's like, I'm going to move to New York. I'm going to be a writer. You know what I mean? The idea that you would have to move somewhere to become something, I think social media has changed the game because you can become something right where you are. And you can obviously still connect to people, but you don't have to necessarily move somewhere now to become something. And I think that is pretty cool.
Right. So following along the story, you've moved to Canada, you've kind of found your community through Instagram, you're starting to bring friends around. Then you get this idea.
Yeah.
What if we did this thing for real?
Totally.
What was the preparation stage? What did it look like? How long before you launched?
Yeah. So this is I remember thinking about, it was probably pretty much all of 2013, to be honest. 2012, it was really seeded in my mind about community, bringing people together. 2013, I really thought about what could this look like. So in my mind, it was three things. It was a website, so it'd be a page that people could follow, like blogs and stories. It was a social following where people could follow the account and learn more about each other in the community. And it was events. We were going to bring people together in ways that they could like have these experiences where they're finally in these spaces together. So it was those three things. And I knew right away that I needed to rally people. So I was like, I got to sell this vision. And so at the end, I didn't know it was anything. Like, I literally had 9,000 followers on Instagram at the time. So on the Instagram world, I was a nobody, you know, but I was starting to make good connections. And so basically what I did is I spoke to some people and they said, you got to talk to this person. And then I'd get their phone number and I'd call that person. And for 6 months straight, all I did was call people. I just had this headset mic on my like phone, like literally, and I just pace the living room and just call people and just sell the story, just share it. Like, what if we did this? And what, I didn't even have a name.
Right.
And when everyone, because remember, this is early days Instagram, and no one has really brought what was happening in the ecosystem into a hub space. Like, you know, there was feature pages and stuff, but there's no real like community where it was like, wow. And so everyone was like, I'm in, here's my email, like whatever. So I just put everyone on an email list. I was like, I'm going to put you on an email list and I'm just going to communicate as we go. Yeah, no worries. And so I would and they're like, and you got to talk to my friend, you know, whatever. They would totally be into this. So then I'd get that number and then talk to that person. And then they'd be, you got to talk to this person. So I probably spoke to like over 300 people over like 6 months, and just like hours on the phone, just pacing back and forth the living room, just telling the story.
How are you paying the bills at this time?
So another story. Didn't really have a job. I had a job, and then I left that job, and I was kind of
to do this, to make phone calls with a headset.
Well, no, I was doing the phone calls just because I had a vision, you know, and I thought maybe this could be something, but I was actually doing, I had a job, didn't work out, and then did another job with a venture with a friend. It didn't work out. And then I ended up actually working for a thrift store, like low key behind the scenes doing their marketing.
I don't know if I could ever see you wearing secondhand clothes.
Listen, thrift stores are huge, right? Yeah. And so I ended up doing that, and it's not something that was definitely my thing, but I was doing it because it was what was in front of me.
Right.
I didn't tell a lot of people I was doing it, but I just did it. It was marketing for a thrift store, and just helping them build some goodwill in the community. And I was taking that whole idea of some events and trying to host some events for them and trying to get.
So you got kind of like a soft.
It was still learning.
You got to try stuff. Right?
It was a great training ground. It was a great training ground.
But then you're hustling day and night because you're working here and then making 300 phone calls. And
so I was doing that job, and my wife was pregnant with our first child, and so I was doing that job, and then I was figuring out what Socality is. It didn't have, like I said, it did not have a name. So I was just putting together and every day I'm growing on Instagram, every day I'm posting, I'm going to the mountains on the weekends and, getting up for sunrise, taking sunset photos, just trying to get content. Cause every time you post, you're meeting people and you're growing the community. Right. So I knew I needed to be active on the app. We call ourselves weekend warriors back then because we were just like, no money was being made. Nothing. Right.
It wasn't like brand deals or anything like that.
No, the word influencer didn't exist. Nobody knew what this was. And so just going to the mountains, taking photos, we knew we were onto something. And doing that, and then calling people, building the email list. And then it came into like around November 2013. I was talking to a friend, and I just said, I got this idea. Like, I'm talking to all these people, and I need money. Like, I need money because I'm going to have to potentially do this full time, and I'm working this job, but it's I don't have the capacity to do both. And he just looked at me and said, if you believe in this, you will put everything on the line.
Wow.
And it was really confronting because I had ideas before, and I think lots of us, we've had ideas, but you always think, oh, I've got an idea, and if someone gives me money, I'll do it. Totally. But he was like, no, if you believe in this, you'll put it all on the line. And I'm like, I believe in this. I think this is going to be something. And so I just kept going. So anyway, it was like, man, I need a name for this thing. So one night I just went to Starbucks, pulled up my laptop, and was just like, I need a name. It's a new thing. It needs a new name. So I just said, give yourself permission just to shut your brain off and just type. Like, close your eyes and just write whatever you think this is. And I just was typing like with my eyes closed, and just like any word, any thought, any idea that came to my mind, I was just writing it. And I had written gibberish, of course. And then I just written a social community, all for eternity. I like the idea of it was social, it was community, and it was all for eternity. It was, this thing about togetherness and belonging, forever. It mattered forever. Mm-hmm. And I just put that all into one, and it said Socality. And
social eternity.
A social community, all for eternity. And I just put it together as one word.
So you did it in your first dream session.
In my first dream session.
You found the name.
One night at Starbucks, yeah.
Oh my God.
It took me probably about 20 minutes.
Right.
And I looked at it and I thought,
that's a success.
Is that a word? So I Googled it, not a word. I went and got all the handles, did all those things just in case. And I was like, I don't think that's the name. I don't know. Is it cool? But I went to bed that night, and the word just kept resonating in my brain through my sleep. I was like, I think that's the name. So the next day I just planted it with a few people, and they're like, that is the sickest name.
Yeah.
That is so cool. I'm like, is it cool?
Is this the vibe?
Is this the vibe? Is this it? Is this the name? Do we have it? Is this it? And so anyway, so I was like, I think that's the name. So what we did is that was around November. And then January, we started dropping the hashtag and just like in posts, like hashtag Socality, a couple weeks before we launched. And people are like, what is this? I see everyone tagging this. Like,
I remember being on Instagram at that time.
Do you remember it?
I can't remember if you had asked a bunch of people, maybe those 300 contacts.
Yeah.
Hey, start using this.
Yeah,
Start down there.
I think I
because
did.
I remember.
Yeah, I did actually. Yes, I did.
I used it. I didn't even know what it was.
Yeah.
I was cutting your hair at the time when you first came up with the name. I remember you told me, and I was very confused. I was like, I don't know what that name is, but I knew it was like iconic. You know what I mean? It's one of those things where you're like, how do I define this? What does it look like? All this stuff.
Yeah.
It was so mysterious at the beginning.
Totally.
But I think it's like a marketing technique that I don't even know if you realized you were employing. But I remember like listening to a marketing talk with this woman who was literally talking about these different types of marketing, and mystery was one of them.
Mm-hmm.
And I remember thinking like the like way that it kind of began was so much of that, like, what is this?
What is it?
And I'm so like confused and intrigued and kind of all of the above. But I think it like got all these people just curious.
Oh yeah.
Well, and I think, and the thing is, I think there's so much power in a name. If it had been called
an identity.
connection or following or, something, or like community X, or I don't know, I'm just making names up.
Right.
But it would have killed it because one,
Stuff that's more familiar.
It's more familiar. That says what it is. But so it's like, if people are like, oh yeah, that's whatever. But because it was a new name with kind of an old concept in some senses, like the concept of connecting on social and turning into face-to-face experiences
or
was
community is
new,
not a new idea.
but community and connection was not new. Belonging's not new. Those feelings are old. We all need it. We need community. We need belonging. But the way that we were meeting or the way we're connecting was a new medium.
Totally.
And so we started.
So you dropped the hashtag.
And everyone's like, what is it? And then on January 19th, I had told everybody, because I had done a couple emails to the database. I said, everyone's going to post at 12 o'clock, starting at 12 o'clock. I am at Socality. I'll take the account, open it up public, and just everyone talk about it. Do a post. It expresses who you are. And say, I am at Socality, and we're going to drive people to the account, and we're going to grow from there. And that morning I woke up, and I'm like, this is the dumbest idea.
Right. Doubting yourself.
Doubting myself.
Yeah.
I'm like, this is so stupid. This is going to fail. I'm working this job that I need to pay my bills. This is where my money's at.
You got a kid on the way. But
I've just spent 6 months talking to people.
Right.
I'm exhausted from all these conversations.
Yeah.
I'm like, let's just do it. I was gonna email everybody like, forget it. What a dumb idea. Like, we're not gonna.
I'm glad you didn't.
We're not gonna. Yeah. Literally, I was that close to emailing people, and I said, let's just do it. And at 12, I emailed everybody, and at 12 o'clock, I posted my devastating photo of I am
filter did you
at
put on?
Socality. Oh, it was bad because remember, once again, in the square,
Right.
No one was like, we were all taking photos on our phones, right? No one was really doing, and. The account blew up all day long. I was in my pajamas and I just could not get ahead of it.
Right. Didn't even have time to get dressed.
Yeah, I was literally in my pajamas all day, and literally 75 countries on the database day one.
Wow.
And not big now, but back then we had 10,000 followers in day one. But now, back then, that was huge.
That's crazy.
And we were posting photos, and they were getting like 5,000-6,000 likes on a post.
Wow.
And we were introducing community members, and we would post a community page. I would post somebody, and that person's following would shoot through the roof. Like, there was just like this huge energy, and everyone's like, I'm so in love with this. I want to be a part of this. How do I get involved? And I'm just like, I don't even know how you get involved. I was just wanting to bring people together.
Right.
And it just right away, it was like super overwhelming because I went from like this idea that is now out there, this idea that I had been sitting on that was kind of like just, all under the radar. Now it's live.
Not even fully formed.
Not even fully formed.
Yeah.
Yeah, it's not like you had a plan, right?
No, there was no business plan.
No business plan. And,
very clearly.
And I think a couple of things. Well, we had announced our first event.
Jonathan's the business guy.
We announced our first event in Calgary, in Alberta,
Right.
in May. So we had 5 months to pull off an event. No money, nothing, no team. Everyone like, I want to get involved. I want to be part of this. I'm like, huh?
Yeah.
I'm just in my pajamas. Like, I don't know how to, like, there's no infrastructure.
Right.
And it just took off. It was just
so
like
cool.
overwhelming. And it was from that moment on, it was like a train I could not catch.
Right.
I was just like, and people thought we were like this big invested, like
startup
we
or
had
something.
money or something. I'm like, no, like people call, I want to speak to you. I'm like, you're speaking to him. Like, you got the secretary, the owner, the computer engineer, like everybody's me.
Yeah.
Like, I don't even know what I'm doing. Like, we got a Squarespace site, everything. And so, but what we did do, and sorry, I did not tell this story, and you were also part of this, is we were hosting local nights
Right, I
with
remember
people
that.
here in the
Tuesdays,
city
yeah.
on Tuesdays, where we
Yeah.
would just rally people and they would come and we would just talk about it. And so we actually
Yeah.
did build a local team
Yeah.
that was going to help with the first event. So it was a lot of, everyone was a volunteer. Everyone was like building like sets and stages and, photo walls. And that's actually where I know John and I had interactions in the past, but I never really met John.
Right.
But he just showed up on those Tuesday nights, and so did you. And John, everyone's like, "How did John get involved?" And I'm like, "He just showed up,
Never
and
left.
he just never left. He just kept doing things." So I'm like, "I guess it's you and me."
Consistency wins.
Yeah, it's like John just kept showing up, and I'm
Right.
like, "Should we go get an office?" Like a couple of years later, yep, let's go get an office. So John's just kind of been there from day one, but So then we had built a bit of a local team that was going to host people
Right.
for the very
For this
first event.
event.
Yeah, that was happening. And you were there, you were there.
Yeah, I remember. Yeah, I remember even so then coming to event day, sitting in this room, I'm like a part of the whatever that volunteer like launch team. Still I had no idea what Socality was at that point.
But
you know what though?
Even I was still learning
Right.
what it was.
But
I'm
but
not
the thing
sure
is,
anybody in that
Myself
room
included.
knew what it was yet.
Yeah.
but you have this way of gathering people around, even if we didn't know, we trusted whatever the heck it is that you were
Totally.
like, and it wasn't about the thing that you were selling us. It was about this feeling behind it.
Right.
And there, like you said, like there's a feeling in community, that in the collectiveness, the things that bring us together. And whenever you would pitch it or you'd say it or whatever, you could feel that.
Yeah.
And that's why
Yeah.
hundreds of people wanted to be part of it, and thousands, right?
I knew we were onto something. Like
Yes.
that, I felt it in my bones. Like there was something special in the air. I definitely felt that. Like we had the name, we had this energy locally, we had, and we did host this event, and because of the viral response online, the energy we were getting from the community, and then the types of people that we were attracting, like just really amazing creators, salt of the earth type people that were just like wanting belonging and community and connection, and just like, like attracts alike. We were finding it. I knew we were onto something. And so, and plus the energy we had in our local meetups, the volunteerism of everybody just rallying. And then we had the idea of how we're going to pull off an event. Like we have no money. And so we just like rented yellow school buses. Do you remember this?
that. Yeah,
remember
yeah.
this?
Yeah.
We just called up the local school bus company and just booked them. We had no money. I was emailing people trying to tell the idea of collective reach, and we're bringing all these in because we did bring in some bigger creators in, because I thought, if I bring these creators in, they can do mentorship and they can do training on creative, and it could be, and maybe that will help push some of maybe we could get some sponsorship dollars. But nobody knew what I was talking about, because
Right.
nobody knew about collective reach. Nobody's investing money into Instagram.
Well, it wasn't like it is today. In the last
No.
5 years,
No.
you reach out to a brand and they're like, "Hey, I understand the model.
Yeah.
Sure, I'll give you
Yeah,
something."
yeah.
This was totally new.
Nowadays, people have social media managers.
Yeah.
Back then, they're like,
No.
Instagram? Yeah, so what? Who cares? You're going to bring people together and take photos on the mountains? They could care less.
Right.
And so I was like, well, we're just going to have to figure this out. So we got some yellow school buses. 300 people showed up from all over the world, including Finland, New Zealand, over 22 states. People
That's
drove.
crazy.
Yeah, like they got in cars and they drove. And
And it wasn't summertime.
No.
It was like minus 25.
well, it was
it?
It was warm
May,
here.
okay.
May, I think.
It was
right?
May.
But we got
Oh,
the
okay.
fluke snowstorm.
We got the flu.
Right.
It was like 25 degrees, and then the next day it was showing like -5. I'm like, huh? So they all get here, and we got this dumping of snow. But it actually made for
Hope you brought your
epic.
boots.
And I do remember when we got to Lake Louise, and we had the yellow school bus open, and we all got out, and everyone had like from all over these different places, and I got to show them the mountains. I remember that feeling of
Right.
like, hey guys, there it is. There's the photo I've been taking.
Right.
And to see us all together, that to me was like, hey, we're onto something.
That's so
I
cool.
knew there was something special there.
Yeah.
And so, yeah.
So then from that day, obviously momentum and things have like been carrying you guys forward, and hard work from guys here like John and obviously countless volunteers. But what has it grown into? Because like for someone who is either just being introduced to Socality or who has followed but doesn't live in the same city, never been to a meetup.
Yeah.
How is it growing? Where is it going?
Yeah, so I think we learned a lot. Like we did that first event, and then we, like I said, John just kind of stuck around, and then we had another event and another event. And then it was so funny because I'm like, guys, we built a team. Like I just think of like just people that were just hands up. We built this team of people from Dallas and from Wisconsin, and we were all from different places. And I'm like, we're going on tour. We're going to California. Yeah. And so we got a sponsor to give us $5,000. And that allowed us to all fly down, rent a couple vehicles, get an Airbnb. And we went to San Francisco, LA, and where else did we go? San Francisco.
San Diego.
And San Diego. And we just literally held meetups.
Yeah, just community events.
Golden Gate Bridge. And
this is still in the first year? Or is
this was just the beginning of the second
2.
year. And I'm not lying. Wherever we went, hundreds and hundreds of people. And we got invited to the headquarters of Instagram on that trip. And we got to meet the team at Instagram, which was really cool. 300 people at just Golden Gate Bridge, just like meet us here.
Wow.
Malibu at El Matador Beach. And then we had this beautiful, beautiful venue in Hollywood called Lombardi House. Just offer us this space, like the place that people like Google has their Christmas party at. Like it's insane.
Oh, wow.
And people were like, I'll do the food, I'll do the music. It was like really like this organic grassroots of community. And we held this incredible event with people coming from all over. And everybody that was participating was
just
doing
contributing.
Contributing. And I'm
crazy.
like,
and they were reaching out. You guys weren't reaching out to these people.
just people like, I'll do
It was like a friend who's like, oh, I know these people at this place.
Yeah.
They like what you guys are doing. Like they've got this venue. And then you're like, oh, that place is sick.
Yeah.
And they were like, really? Okay. And then like someone else is just like, oh, this girl does like really cool food stuff. She wants to make food for everyone.
Oh, okay.
And we're like, okay.
That's awesome.
Yeah. But like, that's the kind of stuff that was happening. And I think the challenge though, that like we found was I think there was that tension though, cause we juggled the whole, like, what is this like structurally?
Yeah.
Like it's one thing to say like, what is this like from a values vision, but then like you're like, what actually is it from like a legal structure? Like,
right. You can't just go on a hope and a prayer.
Yeah,
you sort of go so far.
At a certain point we were like,
and volunteerism.
well, and then that's the other thing that's hard is like, people are stoked to buy into something and build something, but at a certain point you can only volunteer so long before you're like, guys, I love this, but like I got to pay my bills. Right. And so we were still trying to figure out, okay, so like that's a reality. We're seeing other people like either they're scaling nonprofits or they're starting businesses, and we're torn being like, this feels very nonprofit on one side with like the values and the vision of what we're trying to achieve from like a community building side. But I don't know if this is a charity, you know, and we're like,
we didn't know.
And we're like, that seems like that might be really hard. Like we're trying to like involve businesses and like people are wanting to sponsor things. And like, so we kind of landed in this like in between where at one point we were like establishing like a foundation and a corporation, thinking it was some like hybrid structure. Wow. We landed kind of where it is today, which is more of like a social enterprise model, which is like, it's a for-profit business because it's just way easier to run it that way.
Right, but it has the
with
DNA
a kind
of
of social kind of focus to say like, really, we're not doing this to make a bunch of money for ourselves. It's to, you know, build community and like create opportunity for people. But it was
this amazing tension of like goodwill and people so excited, but you do have to answer the question, like, what are they building?
Yeah.
And what are we building? Because at the end of the day, like, you can't run on volunteers forever. And even if you have volunteers, which is great in any org or company, people want to know what they're building for, right?
Of course.
And they start to ask questions. And we were getting asked questions that we just didn't have answers to. Like, does
you just smile and nod?
Does Socality make money? Who's making the money?
Right.
And we're like, well, first of all, no, it doesn't. So nobody. Whereas people thought we were this big, like I said earlier, this big corporation.
Right.
You know what I mean? Like we were in some head office. You know, it's like, hey guys, like this is just. I know that, and the other thing is, a lot of people thought we were from California because of the name Socality, SoCal, and just the way it looked, like it had an American feel.
Totally.
It's like no.
And there's a lot of folks in California that were involved.
Totally.
So you had that.
And
too.
we had a strong West Coast representation. And so then all of a sudden they find that we're actually in Alberta, you know, freezing cold. And they're like, huh? Like, you know, we're figuring that out too. So there was so many questions we were answering and discovering at the same time. But like I said, I knew we were onto something.
So that was one of the first kind of hurdles was one, defining, you know, like
what
you
is
said,
it?
what is it?
Yeah.
How do we either make money, but more than that, how do we survive? And then moving past surviving is how do we take this vision, and because ultimately bringing people together, either like you I don't know, if your mission is to like make money off the people you're bringing together, then it's like, is it really about bringing people together?
Well, that was the hard part, right?
Right.
Is community in and of itself like isn't it's funny.
It's hard to monetize.
Yeah, well,
Or you
now,
can't really,
so it's so funny. Now, like, obviously we've been like entered this era where like you've had the NFT stuff blow up, and people are literally building projects in the NFT space where it's all like, how good are you at building community? Like, it's all like they're literally like being like the best NFT projects are just the best community. It's all about like, so we've kind of come full circle to now there's all this like value people are placing on community building. But where we were at, it was like, we literally had advisors that were like, there is no money in community, like full stop. You need a product, like,
And we didn't feel comfortable with just like selling out the community. Like, let's make a clothing line or let's make this. Because the thing is, we just felt like what we had was the reason people were drawn to Socality was the story of belonging and connection and community. How do you stay true to that authentic thing of what you really are without selling out?
You're like the proof is in you. The fact that you moved to your hometown country, technically, but a foreign country being Canada, and you didn't have any friends.
Yeah.
And so like being the catalyst that moved forward, and now you pioneered this thing, or you guys pioneered this thing, that you literally, the proof is in you that this thing works. And so we can't.
Well, it was happening for all of us. Like, it was happening for me. I'm doing this and I'm going, I got no idea where this is going, but it's literally taking all these things I care about and packing them into one box.
Yeah, that's cool.
And I remember just being like, I don't know how exactly this happened and we met, but I'm still here because somehow you managed to bottle all this stuff that I care about.
And I
was seeing that in so many other people.
We've seen that for so many other people where they come to Socality, an event, and it literally changes their life. And we see opportunity and connection and open up for them, and then all of a sudden they're in the midst of their dream and their opportunity. Well, how do you monetize that? Like, and at the same time, that's a huge win for us, because that's exactly what we want.
You're doing what you want to do.
We were doing what we want to do, and so it's like, you don't want to take that away by just like, hey guys, here's a product line.
Totally.
You don't want
to feel cheated almost,
or even access to the community. You don't want to sell everyone. If I had a dime for everybody who gave me a vision of what I should do for Socality, you know what I mean? It's like, it's like a million people telling me what I should do. But at the same time, I didn't feel that was right. Like, you should sell courses, or you should do this or do. And I'm like, well, community should be accessible. I mean,
and we tried, like, to be honest, we tested a lot of stuff.
We did.
It wasn't.
But even then, what we tested was very, very affordable.
Minimal. Right. But I think, the reason a lot of it wasn't hitting for us is because it was like, that wasn't our goal.
Yeah.
And it was still early, and we're almost feeling like, oh, we're doing this stuff, but like, that's not what we're trying to do.
Yeah.
Right. And it's hard if that's not what you're passionate about. It probably felt like a side job on top of what you're
totally
doing.
Like, we were like, we dabbled with a little bit of like online education stuff, and it's funny now to come full circle, and we're doing more of that in a I think a much better way that's probably facilitating how we would like to do it, which aligns, and Scott can kind of share some of that in terms of where we are now, but we tried a lot, because you're still asking those questions. But I think in part, and there was like lots of frustration, I think, for us, like, cause you're like fast forward, you're like 5-6 years into probably 5 years into something. And I remember like us having this conversation and him being like, I've read these articles where they say if you've done something for 5 years and it's still not like paying the bills or sustainable, like it's a hobby and you need to like do something else, basically. I think we were like 4.5 years in.
It's not a business, it's a hobby.
I think we were like 4.5 years in, probably like mid 2018, like something like that. And it was a wake up call a little, because we were both doing other things. Anybody else who's involved was doing other things. We were all basically paying the bills with stuff that wasn't this.
Right.
And that was part of the hard part, is we hadn't stopped to go, like, like Scott said, get external funding, or go, hey, we're starting a business. We need like seed capital to create this thing. Cause we didn't even still have a business model. Like, we were still like, we don't know what we're selling you, even if you were going to invest in us.
Right. And brands or communities or people, they want to see a return on their investment. So it's like,
totally. So if you're like,
how do you even define that?
Yeah.
Right.
Well, and if we're still operating almost effectively like a charity, pretty much, it's like, hey, we're building community, like, but with that said, we'd seen a few little things with like partnership, where like you do the odd event, and there was like that proof of concept back in the early days with like a sponsor that wanted to piggyback on what we were doing and be a part of that and connect into that like feeling. And so we just kind of looked at each other and said, hey, let's like make a commitment. We've got 1 year. Like we use that kind of 5-year window to be like, if this is still not like found its legs sustainably, like at the end of this next year, like let's just shake hands, say this is a like nice hobby side project. The social media accounts can continue to just be like hey, we'll support the community, but like we're going to move on, and it'll kind of take a very second place, like third, like, and that's maybe an encouragement to a lot of people. Sometimes like, if you believe in something, you have to set a bar to say like, if we don't achieve this by then, then we're done. Yeah, and oddly enough, when we did that, it's kind of crazy how that all played out. But we then started doing these. We were like, okay, what's our core thing? It's community. So what does that look like? It looks like bringing people together, like in an event. Pretty simple. So then we said, okay, where? Some major cities, because we've got people in these places. So let's pick one a month. And I remember us being like, okay, or like one kind of on a sequential basis over the next bit. We're like, let's do one in Toronto. Let's do one in New York. Let's do one in a few of these like places, I think LA. And so we just started, and we're like, let's find like a partner or somebody in these places. And so that started this progression. It was like, oh, Toronto, we like the clothing brand Doer like jumped on board and like helped cover the costs. And we kind of did some stuff there, and like great response. People were coming out, and like New York B&H Photo like jumped in, and that was like maybe one of the bigger partners we'd had. And there was this momentum building, but like at the same time, we're still in a point where like, we're not paying ourselves anything for this.
Right. Your events are paying for themselves.
They're covering the cost barely.
Hardly. Like our events literally were hard. It was still like, hey, we're taking our own food. I
feel
out
like
of this budget, we
yeah.
have a flight, and maybe we'll all share a hotel room, but like you're on your own for your food. Like it was still very like, yeah,
bare bones. Yeah,
very bare bones.
Right.
Yeah, but like John said, we got B&H Photo, and we went to New York and did an amazing event with them. And
those were those little moments where you were like experiencing it, and you were like, oh yeah, I think we're still onto something.
Yeah.
Like there's cool. Like you're like
we were still getting the same.
We had a huge response in New York.
Really?
We had an amazing event with them, and
that togetherness, that feeling of like connection and togetherness and kind of magic that happens when you bring a whole bunch of like-minded creative people together, like was still happening. And so I don't know. I think there was just this belief like, okay, like something's still, there's still something here.
Yeah.
And then that was like not too long before then, like Canon reached out to you.
Yes. So we had been doing this for like since 2014, so 5 years. And then we had done that whole stream of events with our final year ago, just figuring out this is it or not. And then, Canon reached out, Canon Canada.
What year is this?
This was
2019.
2019.
So about 3 years ago.
And to this point, everything was still like on our own dollar. If there's sponsorship, that money basically covered an event. Like no one's getting paid. No one's like, we're paying things on our cards, type thing. Like we're floating this thing. On the outside, everyone thinks that you've got all this capital and all this money and you're this big org, but we're like,
well, yeah, because your influence is so wide, and
the influence was big,
and the amount of like heavy hitter people that are a part of what you're doing that are showing up. They're like, oh, if that guy who has 500,000 followers is going to this, they must have money.
People, it's a common misconception, and so I know one time someone wrote on my account like, "Must be nice to be a millionaire." I'm like, let me know when you find one. Because John and I are heart and soul guys. So we take everything and just dump it back into people. And we're just like, let's just, and so we're doing this event. And then Canon reached out and said, we love how mobile you are. So you see, we had been doing this because we believed in it, and we had been told there's no money in community, but we'd been building for 5-6 years. These communities everywhere, and everywhere we go, there's hundreds of people showing up. And then Canon, we solved the problem for them because they're like, we want to be mobile. We want to host mobile events. And you guys are doing it with creators, and they're like, can we just piggyback on you? So we dreamed about what that could look like. And then John and I flew to Toronto, and we shared a vision with them. And
Day of the Raptors parade.
The day of the Raptors parade. We stayed at the same hotel that they were having a party. But basically, we went and shared this vision with them about bringing people together. And so their interest was sponsorship of our events,
partnership, really.
Partnership.
Yeah.
People
like
we didn't
together.
have to change anything about our DNA. Keep doing what you're doing. And we just want to make sure people can test drive the latest Canon gear at your events. They can sign up, come
And
to your event. Anybody can come.
To Socality, not
Socality,
Jonathan.
Socality. And they wanted Socality to do this. And the thing about it is they wanted anybody to come. And it doesn't matter if you take photos, want to learn to take photos, if you have a different brand, everybody was welcome.
So skill level didn't matter.
Nothing. We did not have to change anything about our DNA. Just keep bringing people together, keep creating experiences, keep building community. But at the same time, people could test Canon gear.
And coming from a couple people that were already shooting Canon,
we were always like shooting Canon.
Sick.
Yeah.
I was already Canon.
Like you're kind of sitting there being like, so wait, the brand, like one of the brands that we already like support, like purchase from, like would already,
you're already spending money with them.
Yeah, like would already speak well of you guys want to like work with us and then do this together.
It was amazing.
So do you think that like,
and then you were like, okay.
And then all of a sudden we were in business. We're like, now we have actual dollars to like keep
what's the
doing
difference
this.
between a partner for one event or working, and that's just like, I mean, we had this talk even, with some of the workshops, like that's also the value for creators and people in general. It's like when you can work with a partner to do a whole bunch more, it's way easier. I mean, we're better partners with them when we're working together on 20 events or whatever it is in a year versus, the events we did before this where you're doing like one-off with this partner and this partner. It's like, oh yeah, maybe there's some value there for everybody.
Right.
But there's so much more value for everybody involved when you're like, no, we're doing something together for an entire year or for multiple years or building together. And, and so, yeah.
What do you guys feel like, because you get to that 4.5 year mark that you're talking about and then all of a sudden things start like the tire, like the wheel was going, like things were moving, but then all of a sudden they started to take off. Like, do you think, was it a moment of, wow, our hard work's finally paying off, or we put out an ask and everyone and someone asked the brands, or was it like a kismet, like the universe is looking out for you, like something had to happen because this is like fate? Like what did it feel like?
No, I feel like in some ways it was a restart.
Really?
Because the first 5 years was all about building.
Yeah.
And in some ways, like even though you're well known with some people, you're still kind of hidden. And then this was almost like, now we're actually in a new startup mode because now we actually have some dollars to make some things happen. But now we're actually working on this full time. Like, and so it was almost like a reset and a restart, and almost like people still discovering us for the first time and learning us. And so it wasn't like we made it. There was no pop the champagne like we did. It was like,
no, it was a beginning.
It was like a beginning and like, let's just get to work.
Wow.
Yeah. It was like, let's just get to work. Let's keep building. Let's keep growing. Let's keep connecting, and let's keep bringing people together. And now we can just do it more often. And so for us, it was just more of just what we were doing, but in a more intentional, even serious way.
And so Canon they were one of the big ones to start.
100%.
Are they still?
Yeah, we still working together.
Still working together, dreaming together.
Other, I'd say there's been other partners and other opportunities that have come alongside since then. But we have so much gratitude for that relationship, because I would say like them believing in us, coming alongside, really was that like wind in our sails to kind of see that was something, that was possible, to keep doing that, to kind of scale that, to build that, and then to kind of launch that next chapter. But to what you said, it's kind of interesting because we were even talking about this before we, got on here. But I think so often people come so close, like they do something just long enough, and that moment is right on the other side.
Really?
You know what I mean though? Like it's like we grinded for like 5 years, and they're like almost 5 years, and there was so many like incredible memories in the midst of that.
Right,
so
like, I'm sure you had a lot of haters in the middle.
Lots of challenge, lots of stuff. Like, but don't get me wrong, within that first 5 years, there was like so many beautiful memories, even while we were making no money, literally just doing things for like the pure joy of it. Right. But there was so many opportunities to quit too. Like there was so many moments that probably for you, for me, like your own personal platform, like took off in that 5 year period. Like Scott easily could have just been like, honestly guys, this like whole thing is like, we still haven't figured this out. I can make bank just like traveling the world and getting paid.
Doing
Like he was literally
marketing,
like he had just been consistently kind of doing his thing and growing his, and we all actually had kind of grown quite a bit. Like I'd say at that point, any of us probably could have just gone, okay, guys, good run. Let's all go do our thing and break up the band almost and and do our solo acts and do well, you know. But I think there was this part of us that knew that like the reason we started doing it in the first place was because it met a need we were looking for, that we felt other people needed as well. And that belief, you know, you said, you know, at the beginning that like the reason you were willing to kind of give up so much and do all, you know, was because you believed enough in it. And I think that's just an encouragement to anybody that like you might be in like that space of time that we were in, that like first few years where you're like, I feel like I'm close, but like I believe so deeply in what I'm building or what I'm creating, but I've gotten no breaks. I still don't even know if this is a thing. Like it seems like I've hit I've fired a few bullets. We've hit a few targets, but like nothing has fully stuck. There's no monetization or there's no like breakthrough into whatever it is. But that might be like 6 months. Like it might be the product of like another 6 months or another year or another 2 years of just showing up.
Do you think you guys needed each other in
100%?
Because
this doesn't happen. Like I know, like Scott was the absolute catalyst for me to jump, like to take the like go down this route in my own life, and that's I think why I like so fully believed it, because I saw it. Right, like I was this kid who like had all these big dreams, lots of vision, always doing like all this stuff, but it was like just channeled it.
Right.
And I saw like so much personal creative growth in such a short period of time.
But then to get over that like you said, that 6 month hump, because the alternative is it never works. And you just go 15 years and you're like, I just
that's the other thing.
Decade and a half of my life to
that. But that's that. I think that was almost that ultimatum we gave ourselves, right? Where it was like, because we had talked about that. Where like you can also just be crazy. Like there is a right time, I think, in business and in life to just say that was good. This ran its course, and like that chapter's closed.
Right. Not everything has to last forever.
So consistency is important, but there are chapters, right? And there are seasons where you're like just sticking it out for another 5 years and like beating a dead horse, like isn't good for anybody.
No. And there's seasons for every individual too. Like there might come a day where I step aside from Socality.
Right.
But my goal would be to improve it and to leave it in a space that I could pass it on to people to grow it. I can't just abandon it because that's not good leadership. So I have to work through and figure out how long will I be a part of it? And maybe I'll be a part of it forever, and maybe I won't. And maybe I'll pass it on, and however, I don't know that right now. But I do know this, that it is worth still working towards it, because when you do these events and you see people come up to you and just say thank you, and you see people's lives and trajectories change, and you see people literally become different people, step into financial opportunity or creative opportunity that they would not have had you had not done that, then it makes it worth it. And then you go, okay, I'm doing this, and I'm doing this for people. I'm doing this because I feel this is what I'm meant to be doing right now. And you just keep going and you figure out. And I think there's healthy frustrations that we have where we know we're not where we should be, but we're at least committed to get there.
Right.
And I think that that's the difference. And you can easily be frustrated and be like, we should be so much further along than we are. But at the same time, there's other people that look at us and go, man, you're living my dream. People go, you're living my dream. And I'm thinking, really? Because I feel like I'm caught in a whirlwind of hustle and work and the grind. And I feel like we're not where we should be. And I'm so frustrated. But then other people look on the outside and go, man, I wish I could be doing what you're doing.
Right. Well, and you and I have that conversation all the time where like we encourage each other, where like, I know you'll have those moments of frustration where you'll look at all these other people who are building certain things in like really quick periods of time, and it's like, oh wow, look at that. And then we'll go back and I'll say, yeah, but look at where you're doing, and that's your path, right? Like, and I think it's so easy to look at everybody else's like journey and path and just see the easy parts, and then forget that like we're on our own, our own path, and we have to just trust. There's a trust level to say like I
think that's the creator in us. So you always tend to look at what other people have, and you forget what you have. And I think it's so easy. So when you say, could I do this without John? I couldn't do this without John, and I couldn't do this without other people, because it takes everybody to remind you of what you have and how you keep going, and they make up your shortfall. Right. Like literally what John does, I could never do. Like, this guy puts together these charts and these graphs and these answers and these spreadsheets, and I look at that and my brain wants to explode. I'm like, I couldn't do that if I spent like years training for that. But John just like, we just made a chart, like, and I'm just like, huh? But you really realize how much you need each other, and your strengths and your weaknesses, and the power of team. And so, and the other thing I think, as we get ready to wrap it up, but I want to encourage people. I think you touched on it. Like, just because it's a dream doesn't mean it's not hard work. Yeah. Dreams are hard work.
Yeah. It'll cost you probably everything.
It will cost you everything. And that's what my friend said to me. If you believe in this, you will put it all on the line. And that
was year one. That was before even year one.
Year one. And there are days to this day where I go, this is too much.
Right.
It's too heavy.
Oh, still. I think there's still like we're talking in a place where, like, if we're being honest, we're still right in the thick of it.
Totally.
Like, in like pivot and in figuring it all out. So it's like, it's easy to like do this whole hindsight thing. We could do a part 2 of this to talk about what we're learning right now, and that would probably be like another hour.
Yeah, because we're now we're in growth mode of like building and looking at hiring people and training,
facing different challenges,
training roles, and like literally like from like, hey guys, let's get together, to like, here's your role, this is what you do, we're gonna work in these hours, and these are our tasks. We went from like whatever, where you realize in order to grow something, you do need structure, and you can't just be out there taking photos forever and be like, I just posted some bangers on the gram. At the end of the day, you got to work. And so what does work look like? Well, there are traditional elements to work, like showing up at an office, doing a role, creating events, hosting events, making sure people's experience when they come to an event are seamless. Like, this is work. 80% of it is not sexy. It's like admin and emails and communication and making sure where's parking, and I can't find where the venue is, Totally. And then the 2% is the epic hero photo. Here we are together, and everyone's hugging, and you know what I mean? That's such a small window, but that is the thing that makes it worth it. Right. Like that, the 1% makes the 99% of work worth it, because that's where the gold is. The gold is in the connection, in the community, and the smiles, and my life was changed. And I came here and I didn't know anybody, and now I'm walking away with incredible friendships for life, and then you see people like fly from Toronto to come to a hike in Calgary for 4 hours just because they want to meet people to fly back the next day. Wow. Like, people are flying and meeting up with people just to come together,
spending their own money,
and connect. Like, I remember one. So cool. I know we're over for time, but when we were in San Diego and we were doing an event, and we just said, there was one guy standing left. We were all cleared out the venue, and we're like, oh, do you need a ride somewhere? He's like, yeah, I need and so we're taking him on a ride. I'm like, oh, so you just live around here? And he's like, no, I live in New Jersey. This was like 2015. I'm like, oh, New Jersey. So you're just visiting? He's like, no, I came for this. I'm like, huh? He's like, yeah, I flew all the way here for this event. Wow. It was just a couple hour event in San Diego. I'm like, wait. You flew from New Jersey to San Diego to this?
Right.
And he's like, yeah, I wanted to meet everybody.
And then he came came to the next one on that. Like, we did a couple down there.
Yeah.
And then the crazy cool part was then when we went down to New York and did some stuff out there, like we saw him there.
Yeah.
And it's like this whole, and that just became like, I don't know if it's normal, but it like became normal.
Right.
And then COVID happened, which obviously like
a whole other
story. Makes events,
which was like a crazy thing to be a community organization that couldn't do community.
Right.
And again, probably another story for
Part 3.
Right.
Everyone has their COVID story.
Oh yeah.
But I think to your point, I think that was in 2015. The thing that sparked me is like, if there's a need in me to find community, and it drove me to this point, it's obviously in other people.
Right.
And so the same need I was meeting in myself was being met in others. That's why I knew there was a value, is because it wasn't about me. It was about the same need for belonging, community, connection, to be able to create is in other people. And so this is what we're finding at our events, is when this commonality around this synergy of people it's just so awesome and
Right.
so incredible. And yeah, stories like that just keep us going. And we could go on and on and on about the highs and the lows and the all the things. But I think to sum it up, it started with an idea, bringing people together. The road has had its own bumps along the way.
Yeah.
I mean, even internally, there's frustrations of like, what is this,
Totally.
and misunderstandings. And obviously you let people down. You're not perfect. You make mistakes, and you're just like, I myself am figuring things out. And so I'm just trying to do the best with what I have, and I don't want to hurt anybody in the process. I'm just trying to bring people together. But at the same time, it's the people business.
Right.
And one thing I've really stressed with Socality is if you're frustrated, if you are trying to find your way here, let's work it out.
Right.
Because do not run away from this community.
Right.
Let's be family, and family means sometimes getting around the table, having it out. And I've had a lot of people tell me what they think of me, and I'm okay with it. I'm like, sure, unload on me.
Well, I mean, I can even speak to that back at the first event. Me and you had it out.
We had it out. We
literally had it out, and I was younger and a bit more immature. But the fact that we're here and we're good friends, like.
But to me, that's awesome, because a lot of people hate that. Like, they hate conflict. I'm like, if you want to say something, say it.
Get in my face.
No, because it's because
it's important so much.
I would rather you stick around, because everywhere you go, you are. So if you leave me, and you're going to encounter same issues, and then you're going to leave, and then you're
running
into
into similar people.
Right. So let's figure it out.
And then everyone thinks it's the other person. But the thing is, it's partly me and it's partly you.
Right.
So help me grow by telling me how you feel.
Right.
And when you tell me how you feel,
you're
holding up a mirror in front of my eyes, and I go, oh, you don't like that about me? Okay. Like, that's a revelation for me. Okay. That's just good news. And so some people would always like turn it and point it all at you.
Right.
But I'm like, I like the fact that people would find enough value in each other that they would be willing to dig deep and dissect the situation to come to resolution.
That's family, right?
That's family.
That's
and
cool.
you can't have family without problems.
Totally.
And
without conflict.
Without conflict.
Yeah.
And,
or misunderstanding.
You know what I mean?
Miscommunication.
And I'm okay if I bother you, because it means I've probably come in your face.
Right.
But tell me.
Right.
I love that. And I think a lot of people get me wrong because they think that, I could care less what people say to my face. I'd rather them say it to my face.
Yeah.
I'm like, you can say whatever you want behind my back.
Well, then
but
there's growth, right?
Yeah.
say it to give me the opportunity to have a conversation with you.
Right, that's good.
And then you can say how you feel.
Right.
And then I can hear you out and go, that's pretty valid. That's good. I was really rude to you, wasn't I? Or I didn't see that blind spot, or you helped me grow. And so we did have it out.
Yeah.
And look, here we are today.
Yeah, we're good.
Chatting. Of course we're good.
Okay, we could keep going forever. I have two last questions. Two last questions. Okay. Has the vision changed since the beginning? So the vision was community, and as you went over time, you realized, okay, events are a good way for us to build community as well as online. To today, we're 9 years in, we're almost at 10 years. Has the vision changed?
The vision has not changed.
Okay.
The vision has not changed. The vision has stayed the same.
In 2 sentences, tell us what the vision is again, so it's clear at the end here.
He
laughed at 2 sentences.
Socality is a creative community that connects people into their opportunities.
Right.
And so that's what it is. And that has not changed. We're creative. We're a community. People can come and gather around online or in person at any space, and we hope that they can connect into their opportunities and find like-minded people to step into their gifting.
What's funny, because like the 2 words that Scott kind of threw around a lot in the beginning was connect and create. So it's very much this connection and this creativity piece. And then as we've kind of workshopped that and said, what is those 2 things? It is really community at the core. And then, he's mentioned opportunity a few times, because we've seen that's like the biggest need for everybody is like it's fine if you connect, but at the end of the day, we're now at a point where like everybody's got like 1,000, maybe not everybody, but like
I don't.
Hundreds of thousands.
I don't.
Well, no, I was going to say like even like connections.
After this, you're going viral. Everyone follow at Levi Switzer.
Even connections though, right? Like think about like for a lot of people, just their networks from school, from like, you go to a high school, a university, and like you think about how many, just like you were talking like Facebook or Instagram,
Totally.
like connections someone leaves with, and then like, but we don't have capacity. Like, and that's why we've, I think, shifted from a, hey, join this huge big community, which still kind of exists, but like you've got limited bandwidth for like how many people you can have in your life. So community is important. We hope people find that 1 or 2 or 3 or 5 or 10 like people that are like their ride or die, like core kind of community, or that they're building that themselves and are inspired to go create that.
And if you guys could be a channel for that to,
totally amazing, right?
I've always described it as like a Grand Central Station.
Yeah,
it's like trains going
Mm-hmm.
everywhere. Socality isn't a destination, it's a pass-through point. And so people are going to get on and off where they find their spot. And that's okay. We're good with that.
But the opportunity piece, I think, is where we've seen our like focus, shift or emphasize more, which is that, maybe originally was captured by that creation kind of idea. But I think we've just tried to articulate it more and look at, we've seen so many people who've literally gone on to start agencies, start different things, launch like full blown careers. And it's like, okay, wow, there's power there. That's value. That's actually like a huge part of that sort of collective connect.
So with that, answer my last question. Where are we going? What's happening with Socality? In short form, I guess.
I think the vision will always, it's the same, but it will expand because the mediums change. But I think we're looking at ways that we can, people always ask, can I be a part of Socality? And up until now, it is very much like
pay your membership.
There's no membership. Like there's no card. Like people are like, I'm a member. Like there's no like, like they can't pull a card out of their wallet and be like, here's my membership. Or, there is no membership online yet. But I think as we go forward, we would like to intensify membership. Intensify belonging, so
ownership,
people
belong.
So people can really, how do we take what is happening organically and give it a little bit more structure, because so people can feel a little bit more like, I go to Socality. So we're sitting in Socality House, the very first one in Alberta. How do we expand Socality House across North America and beyond to have the physical representation where people could go gather? How do we intensify belonging through a membership, whether it be online or where they could gather resources or more information as part of the community? And so I think, where is it going? It's still about connect and create and putting people to opportunity, but how do we intensify that in a more structured way is something we're working on. So obviously more events, more online connections, but then more physical spaces. And I think at the end of the day, defining how we ultimately bring impact into our local communities. We definitely want to do how we can mobilize these local communities, impacting their local communities, and then connect that on a greater scale. So we're looking at that. We still have a lot of vision, a lot of big ideas, but we know with people like yourself, we're going to get there.
One thing I think that's cool in what you just said about the future is it actually came full circle back to that very first post and hashtag, I am Socality. And when you're talking about this membership thing and this ownership thing, it comes back to I am Socality. And it's not about taking on the identity of Socality. It's about broadening the character and the identity of Socality being it's someone down in San Diego or Chicago or Africa or whatever.
And that was one of my things that I always said to people in the beginning. They're like, how do I get Socality here? I'm like, if you're there, you're Socality. Because Socality is about building community,
which at the beginning probably didn't make any sense.
It didn't make any sense, but it's about
it's
about like attracting like. It's about helping each other. It's about belonging and connection and feeling like empowering people to know that they matter. And like putting value on individuals. And so Socality isn't a destination. It's just kind of like a mindset of like just connection and community and validating each other's existence. I think that's so important when you look at someone and you say, I see you, and they feel heard and seen and valued. And that is Socality. And I can't be that to everybody, but it takes us all
someone else can
to play that part.
Else, right?
And so it's almost like, how do you activate that into someone else's life? And that is Socality at its core.
That's cool. Yeah. So as we're sending it out, guys, I just wanted to say, like, even you guys talking about not only the journey and the hurdles and the tension and all that kind of stuff, but the passion that you've had, the fact that you knew that even if you left this thing, even if you're like, hey, I'm just going to go do some work somewhere else, you knew that you'd be longing for what it was, and that you dive in. It gives me passion. And I'm sure for the listeners and the viewers today, like, they're feeling that same passion. Yeah. So, thank you guys so much. If you guys are watching or listening, make sure you guys stay up to date on what's happening for events. Stay up to date on the socials, on the website, everything. Like, don't miss out. You guys can be a part of Socality. It really is for everyone and everyone. So
Awesome.
Anyone and everyone is what I meant to say.
Anyone and everyone. Thank you so much. What a great conversation. Thanks for listening. If you enjoyed this content, make sure to hit like and subscribe. You can enjoy the audio version of this podcast wherever you consume your podcast. We'll see you.